People who are struggling, who don't own assets, they're finding their life is getting much more expensive. And you're finding the people who have assets are looking at their portfolio in amazement. There's an old saying that it's easier to make money than it is to keep it. Exhausting. They've never been better ever. In 31 years that we've owned this company, it's never been more exhilarating to be in this industry. Never been more challenging. Securing product is a continual business. It's a continual job. We have 2 full-time employees that are working 24/7. We have 1 employee who deals with North America, works during North American business hours, and we have 1 employee who's probably just going to bed right about now. 2020 was our biggest year by far. We've already eclipsed those numbers here through 2021. It's really even difficult to explain what it's like. It's nonstop. It's 24/7 nonstop craziness. There is an awakening, a renaissance in people who have never even thought of owning precious metals before, and I think that there is a new interest amongst a whole group of people that is making what we do much more. I don't even know how to explain it other than to simply say that it's never really been like this before. In all the years that I've done this, we are seeing a massive expansion into the mainstream, something that I'm not used to seeing. Environment that the Federal Reserve has painted us into is one where asset prices continue to rise and defy gravity and in some cases logic, many cases logic. And there is an understanding of that by people who never would have given that a second thought. And they're looking to preserve what they've made. It's 180 degrees different than anything I've ever seen, Patrick, ever, in the respect that these people never would have ever contemplated owning precious metals, and now it is they're rushing to it. People who have traditionally done well in equities are looking at their portfolio at all-time highs, measured against an economy that doesn't, in their mind's eye, support it. And so we are dealing with a whole new group that is changing the landscape of this industry pretty quickly. People who are struggling, who don't own assets, they're finding their life is getting much more expensive. And you're finding the people who have assets are looking at their portfolio in amazement that their real estate and their stocks and their bonds have doubled, have tripled. And I think that doesn't resonate logically. Your mind, your eyes, and your gut are telling you that there's a disconnection here. And that's really where I think the heart of this awakening is in the realization that the valuations maybe just aren't quite justified to the economy underneath it. It is supposed to be a representation of the economy. You know, George Gammon gave a good analogy, and I like it a lot. And the analogy was that if you envision a hot air balloon, the balloon is supposed to be the economy, and the basket underneath it is supposed to be the stock market. And as the balloon goes, so does the basket. But it seems as though it's inverted, whereby the economy is the basket and the stock market is the balloon. And where the stock market goes, it drags the economy along with it in a perverted sort of way. The bottom line is that I believe that people are waking up to the fact that they realize that this, in many respects, is a function of the policies that the Fed has embarked upon, and it is not sustainable long term. There's an old saying that it's easier to make money than it is to keep it, and I think that's what is playing into this expansion into what is a section or a swath of the public that we've never even knew existed. Well, the supply with gold has been much better than the supply with silver. When I look at the last 2 years, 95% of all of our sales, which are record, have silver in them or are exclusively silver. And as a result, gold has not been as difficult to come by. But we can look at the beginning of this year as an example, 2021. In January, the U.S. Mint started rationing and allocating gold eagles and gold buffaloes. And normally that happens in November, December, not 2 weeks into the new year. Gold is not immune to this supply chain issue. The U.S. Mint is the model of inefficiency. I'm one of 27 U.S. Mint authorized resellers, but all year long there has been nothing but delays and shortages. And, in April, when they started to transition from type 1 to type 2 on the Eagles, they were shut down for more or less 4 months. Now, they didn't actually close the building and turn off the lights, but nothing came out for literally 4 months. And if you go back to March of 2020, when the Eagles literally exploded in premium, they really haven't come down in the better part of almost 2 years. And the question is this a new reality? Is this a new, what we can expect moving forward in terms of premiums? And as I mentioned, we now have 2 full-time employees that are doing nothing other than securing product and securing inventory, which used to be a phone call and bang, it's in your warehouse. Now it's 90 to 120 days in advance. You are purchasing, paying 100%, paying the premium, the highest premium we've ever paid in 30 years, not able to hedge that premium, and then running logistics for 90 to 120 days, hedging, tracking, staying on top of shipping, and watching it all the way through the system, and then deciding when it's okay to actually sell that product, knowing that we don't have it yet, telling the client we expect it in 2 weeks, but then oftentimes running into supply chain disruption. And give you an example, we had about $8 million worth of product that landed in the United States in the Gulf Coast area in Texas, and had a Brinks truck pick up $8 million worth of product, and it was going to our vault in North Dakota. It had to go through Salt Lake City, where the 2 drivers quit because of the vaccine mandates, and left the truck inside the secured facility at Brinks, Salt Lake City, where it sat there for 6 days. And finally, 2 new drivers came in and drove it up to our vault in North Dakota. But trying to explain this to customers, why their product was 6, 7, 8 days delayed when we told them it was in the States and it was on its way, is not an easy discussion, but it's the new reality that we face. It's almost as if securing precious metals, Patrick, is running a logistics company. It's never been this way before. But I will say what's different is this. If you are not a big player, if you're not a company that has established relationships with the large mints, the large importers, the large primary distributors, you're shut out, because it goes like this. You have to place a very, very large order, because if you want to be at the top of the food chain before everything sells out 90 days in advance, you got to place a big order, call it 7 figures. You place a big order, you have to be able to hedge it. If you can't hedge it, you're dead, because if you try to buy something 90 days in advance without hedging it, you're dead. The market volatility will kill you. So you hedge it, you pay 90 days in advance, you pay huge premiums, what you can't hedge, and then you run logistics. Literally have an employee that is tracking this, staying on top of the distributors, staying on top of the mint, staying on top of the trucking, everything that needs to be done to bring it finally to the warehouse, where it then is opened, segregated, and sent out. We're up to the challenge, but I guess what I'm saying is that this will put smaller companies out of business. You'll see small coin shops throughout North America go out of business because they can't get product. And in an environment like this, buybacks represent such a minute part of anything that we do, crystallizing the old adage that there's no bull market like a precious metals bull market. And even though the price is not behaving the way a bull market may indicate, we all believe it will, but I would argue that the fundamentals are far more persuasive than the actual price, at least yet. And people are realizing that, they're flocking to get protection, and it's becoming more and more challenging to get product to be able to offer to them on a readily available basis. I've been saying for the last year and a half that this market will be defined by an inability to source product. I really do believe that. If it's this hard to get now, as we see a greater expansion, as a realization, a revelation that, oh my gosh, I need this, and these people are already way late into the game. When that expansion, let me just say that Rick Rule, someone who is a friend of mine who is as smart as any businessman I ever met, talks about a 0.5% allocation to the whole precious metals matrix in the United States. 0.5%. In 1980, that number was 8%. When the Dow Jones and gold crossed at 800, the last time we saw 1-to-1. The average over the last 40 years, if it's 8.5 or 8% in 1980 and 0.5% in 2021, the average, the mean of that 40-year scope is 2.5%, which would represent a 5-fold increase in demand in this industry. It'd blow everything up overnight. And so as we are getting closer and closer to that average, we've talked about expansion into the mainstream, hedge funds, money managers, people looking just to exit with their profit. And where do you go if you exit with your profit? Not real estate. That's at all-time highs. Not the bond market like you used to. That's at all-time highs with interest rates at all-time lows. Where do you go? Well, precious metals represent the only semblance of valuation that there is. And it logically makes sense to where we're going. We can talk about what the Fed is doing, or I'd like to at least at some point, and with money creation and who they're appointing and all of this stuff tells me that this isn't stopping them soon. In fact, it's probably only going to get worse. And I think people are waking up to that. And as we gradually move towards a greater percentage of interest in this industry, it will be defined by, I believe, an acute inability to source product rapidly or with any semblance of a fair value attached to the price that you pay for it. I don't think we see premium relief. I truly do not think we see premium relief. And I say that because it's getting harder and harder and harder to get this stuff, and you have to go further and further out. The U.S. Mint, Silver Eagle. So, look, in November of 2019, had you asked me to buy Silver Eagles, I would have said, sure, $3.29 over the price of silver. I'll buy them back at $2.60 over the price of silver. And 4 months later in March, had you sold them back to me, I would have paid you $11. So premiums really have never come down since then, a little bit. The lowest I've seen them for ask price on Silver Eagles are $8 over for the last almost 20 months. And I think it'll only get worse as we see more and more people decide to buy precious metals. Buybacks, no. I mean, look at there's something here in the States that we call junk silver. That's dimes, quarters, and half dollars minted prior to 1965. It's as rare as hen's teeth right now. Used to be the least expensive thing that you could buy, and now it's the most expensive thing with the exception of Silver Eagles. And this crystallizes your second question, and that is, will we see buybacks? And I say, hell no. In fact, junk silver, which hasn't been made since 1964, is impossible to get. No one is selling. Anyone who wanted to sell it sold it a long time ago. No one is selling to go back into the swamp, back into fiat currency. Instead, they're hanging on to it with both hands. And I think as it becomes more and more evident that you need to have an exit from the matrix, precious metals is it. No one wants to go back even at a profit. They don't sell unless they have to. So buybacks represent next to nothing in everything that we do. It used to, in 2017, it was 6 out of 10 sales that we were doing were people selling back as there was a new optimism in cryptocurrency and equities that were going to the moon. It has completely flip-flopped, and now it represents less than 1 out of every 1,000 orders we do is someone selling. No one is selling, and I don't think you'll see people eager to go back into dollars, chasing really all-time high valuations in the 3 pillars of wealth in this country, stocks, bonds, and real estate, all at all-time highs, measured against all-time low interest rates. Incredibly dangerous when you talk about the potential or prospect of interest rates rising, which would literally kneecap the 3 pillars of wealth in this country.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information, and it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.